Nobody has helped me more than Senator Ted Cruz. Nobody.
He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love. But you know what? I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody.
Because we are going to make America great again. I'm a very stable genius.
Welcome to a very special episode of the Film Threat Podcast. The Film Threat Podcast live at Politicon, which, Anthony, unfortunately, you did not make it.
I wasn't there.
You weren't there, but you weren't there. But you were there.
But I will be editing this, so...
You'll be editing the episode. You're here in spirit.
You mean there in spirit?
Yeah, you're here. You're here. In the ether, in spirit. This was fun. First of all, Politicon, for those of you who have not gone, it's basically like, it's like Comic-Con for politics. They do sort of crazy panels like Ann Coulter versus Van Jones. They had a great panel with Michael Avenatti, which I thought was fantastic, and Kathy Griffin did a panel together. That was amazing. So Politicon, if you look them up, politicon.com, it's sort of like all the nerdy things that would be at a Comic-Con, but it's all geared towards politics. Alyssa Milano did a panel about Me Too. They had Malcolm Nance. I don't know if you know who Malcolm Nance is, but I watch him frequently on the shows. And Malcolm is he worked in intelligence for the U.S. government, and he's on panels. It's if you're a nerd about politics, you could go to Politicon. Now you might think, it's just a left-wing thing. Actually, I would say that Politicon, more than anything, keeps a really good balance between guests and panel content that relates to, whether you're from a red state or a blue state.
Did you get good swag?
I got great swag. I bought a little, what I did? I bought a baby Trump balloon, and I got a baby Trump pin. So yes, and there's a lot of good swag. They had this special impeachment tea, which was peach mint tea, and then Brilliant. They also had RBG tea. So there's all like there was a book, an art book about vice presidents. If you're a nerd about government and politics, there's plenty of swag and stuff to purchase. There's also nutcases. As in anything with politics, there were just crazies that had like just sort of weird booths where you weren't quite sure what they were selling. What I will say about Politicon is I feel that they've kept a good balance between the left and right wing content. Let's just say that. And crazy enough, they decided to allow me to put on a panel. So before I tell you a little bit about that panel, I need to remind you, support us on social media. Follow Film Threat. We're Film Threat on everything. And also, if you're not checking the website every day, there are 3 to 5 new reviews for indie films that are posted every day on filmthreat.com. Anthony, you write many of these reviews.
Yes, I'm working on one now.
Yeah. Well, not as we speak. You're actually talking to a microphone. You're not.
You don't know that. So I'm writing it in my head.
I'm just saying, just a reminder to like, hey, we're not just a podcast. We're a website that is very supportive of new indie films, and you should check it out. And also, if you want to support this podcast, there is a way to do that. You can go to Patreon, patreon.com/filmthreat, or just look up Film Threat at Patreon. We have recorded this podcast out of my kitchen. We've recorded it in cars.
At the ArcLight, like in the bar where people can just walk up to us. We're recording it actually in a bar right now on Melrose Avenue here at the Parlor. We need a studio. We want to expand what we're doing. We want to be able to bring some of these great guests that we're bringing on the podcast, and we want to live stream everything that we do so that you can see it on video. We don't have a way to do that right now. So we're looking for your support. So you can contribute to our Patreon. Once we reach a certain level, we're going to live stream all of the podcasts that we record, every single one. So
we want you to be able to see the guests and talk live and actually participate with us by suggesting questions to ask while we're doing our interviews. And in addition, there's something in it for you. We'll be offering various things that you can get by contributing to the Patreon. But one of the things, you will get the entire Film Threat magazine digital collection. That's every issue of Film Threat, the print magazine that came out between 1985 and 1997. All of them in digital form. You can load them up on your iPad and iBooks and read them like a magazine. The only way to get 70 issues of the magazine in digital form is to contribute to the Patreon.
I might contribute to the Patreon just so I could get that.
Well, yes. Well, first, it's really great. We spent a long time digitizing every issue of the magazine. It's a really cool perk, and we'll be offering other perks as well. So please support us on Patreon, and thank you again. Now, Politicon. I decided to do something kind of goofy. I thought, well, what would be a fun panel to talk about that would sort of give us a way in to talk about all things politics, everything that's happening in the culture right now. Trump, the motion picture. There will be a movie made someday about Donald Trump. And I'm joined on this live episode by Hal Sparks, who's an actor. He was in Spider-Man 2 in that great scene in the elevator with Peter Parker. Love that scene.
Nice suit.
My friend and comedian Esther Ku, and also a friend of mine, Corey Sienega, I've known Corey a long time. When I first moved to LA, I met Corey. She is a development executive and a producer who has worked in film for many years, and she knows everything about the development process. So, look, I'm just going to stop talking. Let's get to Politicon, Trump the motion picture. Okay, welcome Politicon to a live recording of the Film Threat podcast.
Thanks for the fist in the air over there. Great support.
I am your host, Chris Gore. I'm the host of the Film Threat podcast. We interview directors. We talk about movies. We do a lot of movie geeking out. Today, I am just honored to have a prestigious panel with me of amazing guests to talk about Trump the motion picture. Because at some point, we all know there's going to be a movie made about Donald J. Trump. But is it going to be a comedy? Is it going to be a musical? Is it going to be a drama in the vein of Nixon? I mean, every president has had a film made about them, sometimes even a musical that goes on Broadway. And sometimes they even make movies about vice presidents. Of course, I'm referencing the upcoming Vice, starring Christian Bale. A more heavyset Christian Bale. Mm-hmm. But to talk about this topic, to discuss what a Trump movie might actually look like, I'd like to introduce my esteemed panel, starting with Corey Sienega. Welcome to the Film Threat podcast, Corey.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm happy to be here. It's my first podcast, so be gentle.
Corey has worked in film development, has heard countless pitches, pitched to studios, raised millions of dollars for projects, worked with everyone from Matt Damon you worked on a lot. You worked on one of the couple of the Chucky movies as well.
I did work with John Cusack, but I've never worked with Matt Damon. I would though. I would.
But
Cusack for the win, though.
Yeah, right.
But Corey's actually been in the room, sold projects, knows how the development process really works in Hollywood and how films get made. And of course, Hal Sparks needs no introduction.
None.
Comedian.
Don't do it.
Actor.
You can't say I need no introduction and then give me an introduction.
True.
It's a violation of the standard. Act on principle, man. This is Politicon. We have to pretend we have principles here. That's what the whole point is for. Put the con in Politicon.
But I will say that if you follow Hal on Twitter, you'll know that he's very funny. He's also gets very political, and that's why I love him.
That's one way to put it. Sure. Yeah.
And also joining us, comedian Esther Ku. Esther, welcome to the Film Threat podcast.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. What was that sound effect?
There was a nice sound effect. But thanks for joining us. I've watched your stand-up on your Instagram and your YouTube. You also do a podcast of your own.
I do. Ku and the Gang.
And I'm just happy to have you on the show. So let's get into it. Let's start talking about, I think somehow the presidency is something that's, when it comes to movies, there have been so many different films about presidents, right? I mean, Independence Day
Yep.
has a great kick-ass president. We've had presidential films that are romantic. We've had presidential films that are more biopics, and some that are funny. What is the vision going to be laid out? How would you lay out the vision of Trump's story? Because if you think about it, Trump's story would make a great movie. It really is the American dream. It's the Horatio Alger story. It's, man inherits money. That's pretty much it. Man inherits money,
loses the money, then gets bailed out by his dad again, then borrows $35 million from his siblings' inheritance, loses that too, and then starts getting money from
Maybe his
Russian-
brother never died
Russians.
of alcoholism. Maybe he killed his brother for the inheritance.
Wow, that's a twist.
That's dark.
Yeah.
But
that's-
I mean, the way you put it, Hal,
Yeah.
anyone can relate to that story.
Yeah, I can. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, as a white male in Los Angeles, I feel like it's very relatable.
What would be the vision for this film? How do you see it? If you're going in to Bigley Studios, Bigley Studios is going to be the name of the major movie studio that it's going to happen when
Who am I pitching it to first, though? Because that's important. I think she would agree.
It's to Bigley Studios.
Harvey Weinstein in jail.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and Eric.
Well, it's when
Or-
Warner Brothers and Paramount merge, which is going to happen because with the Disney Fox merger, movie studios are
only
just
way
going to have
they
to
can
get
fight
bigger
back.
and bigger and bigger. You're pitching the Trump the motion picture. What is the vision for this movie? Is it a comedy? Is it a musical? What is the story? What's the point of view? Is it from the point of view of not necessarily Trump, but people on the outside? What is your vision for the movie, Corey? What would be your vision for this film, and how would you pitch it?
Well, do I have my producer hat on or my studio hat on?
You can actually take one off.
You're
and put
selling
back
it,
on.
so
Yeah,
producer.
You're selling it.
So
yeah.
the movie I want to make is a movie that maybe brings us together, and it's some kind of Romeo and Juliet story about young campaign workers who fall in love, and it's like a Parkland Kids, and they somehow bring us all together, and nobody will ever make that movie, which is sad. So then the movie that I want to make is just any movie, right? And then for that I need money, and so part of the problem with that is I think that audiences are as polarized as the voter. So who's going to go see that? You're not going to get everybody to see this movie, in my opinion. And the people who didn't show up for all the liberal, good-hearted movies like Michael Moore's last movie we were talking about, Fahrenheit 11/9, probably won't show up for a Trump movie at this point.
I think I could get him there. I have an idea.
Maybe Hal can fix it.
I have an idea.
Let's hear your vision, Hal.
I think what we've heard all these stories of a chaotic White House and the infighting and all this stuff, which is great drama, and we've heard whisper campaigns about it and the whole it's a well-oiled machine that his defense. I think it's a story. You start total darkness, and a figure emerges. You can just barely make out aged features and ratty hair and a scar over one eye or whatever, and it's Steve Bannon in exile someplace, which is where he is actually, and he's like, I could tell you the story of how my liver broke free from my chest and roamed the countryside murdering children, or I could tell you the story of how I got this scar hanging out with Julian Assange in a sewer under the Ecuadorian embassy, but I'm gonna tell you the story of the best and worst man I ever knew, and then it's just Donald J. Trump, and it's Steve Bannon's take, and then like To Live and Die in L.A., midway through, Steve Bannon dies, and someone else picks up the story. Someone younger who's a subplot character. I'm thinking Stephen Miller, and we'll get to the casting later.
Right.
But the idea is that I'm the insider, and I'm going to tell you what really happened in the room. In all these moments, I was inside the bus on Access Hollywood. I was inside the White House when this happened. I was because I do think people will want to see that just to see the awful. I do, I literally think the conservatives are like, he's a macho. Look how he's yelling at people who have to sit there and take it. Like, that's awesome. And then liberals will go, see, I told you he was a monster. So you're both sitting there watching the same awful going, uh-huh.
Well, I also think it's going to be hard to top because I think it's not an exaggeration to say that Trump already makes a great reality show. So how can you top it?
An okay reality show.
How
I
do
mean,
you
without
top it as a
Gary
movie?
Busey and Omarosa, it's an okay reality show. You know what I mean? It's he William hunged his way through that series. That's why they had to bring in weirder and weirder celebrities. If it was a great show with a great host, it'd have been like, hey, Pat Sajak's here. I'm going to teach him how to win at real estate. It wasn't.
It was like the bottom of the barrel.
That's right. And it got deep. They were scraping even harder. Like, what kind of weirdo psychopaths can we get? Because watching this guy going, you're fired again, is getting tired. But you could watch Gary Busey try to sell lemonade on a street corner for weeks. That's a show.
Esther, what's your vision for the Trump the motion picture?
Well, one time Trump got asked if there was a movie to be made about you, who would play you? And of course he said, me.
So it's all filmed in a prison.
I would only want him to play himself, and it'll get made by the Obamas, because they're working for Netflix now, right?
Yeah.
So they'll produce it, because behind the scenes, they're all friends, right? So Trump will play himself, and then Ivanka will play his first wife, and they'll get to film a sex scene together. And then his other daughter, Tiffany, will play his second wife, and then he'll have to pretend he's attracted to his other daughter.
He wouldn't allow Tiffany to be cast in the movie. He wouldn't even recognize her at the audition. He'd be like, I don't know who the blonde over there with the squat face is.
Actually, Tara Reid would play Tiffany.
There you go.
Trump, because
That's
they
right.
probably don't talk. You're right. And then what would happen?
I would believe Tara Reid and Trump talk, though. Some part of me thinks that she's probably one of those closet advisors.
She probably has an apartment subsidized by him.
That's right.
No, he's too cheap. And then there'd be a plot twist, like Ivanka would actually start going out with Colin Kaepernick and be like, I hate you, Dad, and turn. And she's not like this little minion for him anymore.
So you're taking sort of the Inglorious Bastards version of events.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're like, instead of, this isn't a biopic.
Quentin Tarantino will be directing it.
Yeah, it's a neopic or whatever. I
have two visions for a Trump movie that I'd like to see. I think the one is the obvious one. You've got to do Citizen Trump, which is basically Citizen Kane, right? The view of some reporter, the enemy, and you'll find out. I mean, Rosebud was, of course, the thing that Charles Foster Kane lost as a young boy.
Spoiler alert.
Right. Sorry to ruin that. But there's got to be something that made Trump the way he is, something he lost as a child. He's clearly has issues. But what is it? I don't think it's going to be necessarily something as glorious as a sled, but I would love to know what the thing that he lost. And what
his
was
hair?
His hair, right? No.
His hair, that's true.
I think it's the opposite.
Really?
I don't think he lost anything, because I don't think he had an attachment to anything, because I don't think he ever got to a moment where he needed to be attached to anything. Which, when you grow up that rich, there is no one little thing. Charles Foster Kane grew up relatively poor, and having that nice sled, sorry guys, was a big deal for him. There is nothing in Donald Trump's life from when he was a kid, in any of the biographies he's written, certainly nothing in Art of the Deal, which I read in the 90s. There's nothing in it where he was like, it was that thing that I had that I hung on to, or this brass ring. It's not J.J. Abrams' mystery box. It's not, something he was denied. He didn't give a shit about pets. He didn't have one. I think he had everything. I think if there's a Rosebud for Trump, it's a pile of shit he doesn't care about. It's basically the hoarding of a rich person staring at a pile of stuff going, I'm angry that I'm miserable because none of this made me happy like it was supposed to.
So it's a wonderful life mixed with his real life.
Yeah, only wonderful isn't a word I would use anywhere. But yeah, sure. But You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't feel like there's a rosebud in his life. Maybe Ivanka to some degree, or his fixation. Even Jared, I think, holds a higher strata. He might be calling for Jared at his deathbed in the storyline, you know, that kind of thing.
These have something to do with his brother, I think.
Huh?
I think it might have something to do with his brother. Like there's something
Because he
dramatic
doesn't
and-
drink, right?
He doesn't
And
drink. He never picked it up. His brother died of alcoholism.
Yeah, I don't think it was out of pity, though. It doesn't seem like when he's talking about it, he
Just
thought it was a
self-preservation.
Yeah, I'm not going to drink because he died from it, and I'm just going to save myself, and it's not because, you know, out of honor of my brother Fred, I'm never going to. He even said, I never had a drink. No, you know, for no particular reason. I just have it. Like, for no particular reason, you told people for years because your brother drank yourself to death, asshole.
Then why
At
is he
least-
so fat? What does he eat? Jeez.
Have you seen the friggin' taco bowls and like he calls the fish sandwich from McDonald's Fish Delight. He orders a Fish Delight. He has his staff go get a Fish Delight
That's
from McDonald's.
where the fundamental
There's
problem
no
of
such-
Donald Trump is. You don't order a fish sandwich at McDonald's.
But-
You get a fucking Big Mac.
But here's the thing. There's no such
gets
thing
that
as a
too.
Fish Delight. He made that name up. He made it up. He thinks that's what it's called.
If he would have said, "I grab women by the Fish Delight," it would have.
That would have been way funnier.
He would have been elected. Oh wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the other vision I'd like to see. First of all, those are great studio notes, Hal. But the other vision I'd like to see is just something completely wacky, which is a reboot of They Live,
Oh my
which I
God.
think is one of my all-time favorite
Yes.
films, where we find out
Put
that
on the fucking glasses.
the
Right.
Republicans are all aliens from another planet. This would just be a reboot, right? It would be a reboot. And then
They're not.
Trump isn't even a human. Trump is just a robot that is constantly malfunctioning, which is why he does not speak in full sentences. There are
Didn't
many...
Eddie Murphy already do that movie?
Precisely,
Yeah,
yes.
right, with
But there are all sorts of Trump bots. They're always breaking down. It's how he's able to just fly all over the country and have endless bounds of energy. The Trump bot is constantly tweeting. I just want some fantasy science fiction version of Trump's story that would be both funny and frightening.
Well,
I
there's
think
the
that would be my
Manchurian
vision.
Candidate version.
What's that?
There's the Manchurian Candidate version.
Well, that's
certainly.
true. That's true.
I mean, you could go straight MK Ultra with it. That's kind of cool. You know, start with this kind of chubby, semi-balding, comb-overy real estate guy in 1993 or whatever, sitting in a chair with his eyes popped open with just strobe lights going in his face. And someone off camera, reading whatever the checklist for Winter Soldier was.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Elevator, chicken sandwich,
I like
covfefe.
I think that should be the name of the movie.
Covfefe. Yeah, that's right. That's a great idea.
Well, let's talk about casting, because you guys touched on some of the casting, and like you said, Esther, I mean, the best person to play Trump is kind of Trump. So, but who do you think should play Trump and or some of the outlying
I think you
characters?
could make a movie of just Trump impersonators. And just do a reality
Have it like
show
Colonel Sanders.
of who's
Like,
the best
every
Trump
scene.
impersonator.
Every scene, it's a different person playing
It's
Trump.
like America's Got Talent.
That's right. And in the final
impersonation
scene,
version.
yeah, the final scene, it's Alec Baldwin. Like he's the post-credit scene or whatever. He's the last one.
But who-
I'll do it. But I mean, I'd
You'll
have to
do
get
it. You'll do it.
I'd have to shrink my hands and penis. But I would do it. Gain the weight for the role.
What about other casting roles? Other, Jared Kushner, Ivanka,
Jared could
Melania.
be played by any generic Xerox salesman.
He doesn't speak publicly, so
I
it'll be
think
pretty
I don't
easy.
think I could recognize him if he walked in the
I
doors
think
right now.
Jared should be played
He
by
looks so generic.
by a one of those wallet pictures. When you buy a wallet and it already has a picture of a man in it.
Yeah, that's
It should just and with a little paper mache opening and closing mouth, and he could just. I've been living in this wallet for whatever his odd voice, and then in terms of Ivanka, I think I'm gonna go with Harmony, the $17,000 synthetic woman you can purchase online for whatever use you see fit, that remembers your birthday and always calls you daddy. I mean, I think that makes
Wait
sense.
a sec. Harmony is a sex robot
Yeah.
that you think should play
Ivanka.
Okay, well, yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, and then you could take the same one and use a hairdryer on it, like till it's basically looks like one of the Nazis at the end of Raiders, and that it'd play Kellyanne. It's the same doll. you save yourself some money in production.
Now, Corey, I want to ask you seriously. Casting is a big part of a lot of the films. I mean, in terms of getting them funding, and getting a studio to put up millions of dollars, casting is a big part of it. So, on a serious note, who do you think should really be in the Trump movie if you're actually going to see it get made?
Right, practically speaking, I as much as I would enjoy all of these versions, I don't see any of them getting made, and the Red State version is more likely.
Right.
So I feel like you get the low-budget version, and the Red State casting is actually pretty easy because there's only about a dozen people in Hollywood that you might have heard of who actually like him.
Okay.
So then I think you have to go John Voight as Trump. You have Stephen Baldwin and Scott Baio is like poorly aging.
Tim Allen.
Mel Gibson.
Tim Allen could do it. Tim Allen's talented
Possibly.
and has some dramatic chops people don't necessarily respect and would be surprised by.
Yeah.
And I think he would try to do a due diligence from the inside out on Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's
I
a
go for
Trumpster,
that.
but he's certainly conservative and would fit that
He's very MAGA.
casting zone.
Yeah,
I like Tim.
I think we should give Roseanne Barr a job.
Ooh, I think Roseanne as Hillary is an interesting turn in the Red State version.
I think
that
Roseanne
happens.
as Steve Bannon, I think, would be a great part for her.
And
I was going Busey as Bannon.
I do think that, since Martin Short, when he plays Jiminy Glick, has the same laugh and smile as Hillary, I think him in a Hillary suit would be, because that laugh he does and the thing that he does, like, between the two of those, there's a couple of times I was like, he could do Hillary like a jacked up version of her, and that's a crossover casting. I think.
What else do you have, Corey? You have a serious list here.
Well,
you took this assignment very seriously.
Yeah, send us a page of your notes.
Yeah.
We didn't come
I
as
will email you
prepared as
later.
you did.
Stephen Miller, I think, should just be a CG mastermind. Whatever that Megamind.
Yeah,
whatever
Megamind.
Yeah, basically that, or an inverted long neck gourd.
I like to go Tilda Swinton when I don't know what to do. She can do anything.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
I think she could be Jared too.
I think, Scarlett Johansson should play
Ivanka.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Could be. She should play all the wives in makeup through time, from the lead up. You know what I mean? Like, she should play them as character pieces,
Who's
like
gonna
Meg
play
Ryan in Joe versus the
Melania?
Volcano, you know?
Who's going to play Melania?
Oh, that's a tough one.
A
Yeah,
wax,
who do you
a
have?
wax figure.
Who do you have on your list, Corey?
I didn't
Kate
go
McKinnon
Melania. I
could
don't
play
know.
Melania in a dramatic
Again,
turn.
there's the Red State and Blue State. Like,
That's
she's
right.
not going to be in that
That's
movie.
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's tough.
She's got to pull that part. Yeah, you've got a two-tiered strategy. She's going to release two. This is that Wolf coming out the same year, the Howling coming out the same year as Wolfen.
Right.
Like where studios do that, like they know Sixth Sense is coming out, so they put out, what was the Kevin Bacon movie? It was actually superior in many measures, and I can't remember the title right now. That's how bad Sixth Sense ate the scenery.
Or there's like two meteor films.
Yes,
two asteroid
Deep
movies.
Impact and.
Oh my
the
God,
other one.
Macaulay Culkin plays Trump.
That
goes somewhere. I see
You would
that.
like
And
him to
it
be
gets
Home Alone.
made in 30 years.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
What are your other casting choices that you have, Corey? Because I see you have an extensive list.
Well, Kanye is Ben Carson. Are we liking
Oh,
that?
I
Or
could
just
totally
himself,
see that.
I guess.
No,
that
Kanye
works
will
too.
only play Kanye.
Kanye will play. Yay.
He'll play Kanye as
Easy.
Ben Carson. Like that he'll have to be credited as Ben Carson. Kanye as Ben Carson, played by Kanye West.
I go for that. I don't know. Stacey Dash is Omarosa. That's all I got.
Those are some good. I feel like you took it very seriously, like actually
tried.
making this film.
Yeah, she's trying to sell it to what she thought is a group of people who would want to see a Trump movie here.
Well, just
Right.
like, who wants to see
This
a
is
Trump
red-
movie? So that's the thing.
It's for Red Hat over there. You're selling the movie to Red Hats. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which is, it's kind of like, selling. I can't read that print from that smart. No, thank you. I understand what. You're a congressman. Well, apparently you are. You're walking around carrying a card.
Yeah.
We're in a podcast about a movie, man.
Okay,
Relax.
Okay.
Tell him that. He's filming it for you. You'll get it on the internet. It's okay. We hear you. It's good for you. And I understand you're jealous of that guy, but there's nothing we can do about that. There are mostly adults here. I can't help you. I don't know that. All I know is you're making up a story and walking up in the middle of something. I don't know you. I don't know your camera guy.
Security.
I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know you. See, that's how you behave.
Live
I don't know you.
Big round of applause for the person who interrupted the panel.
Oh, the mob mentality of the right.
Well, since we've handled the casting, what is this movie even gonna be in terms of let's envision for a moment a title, a poster, the tagline, what the trailer might be. I mean, if I could,
It's going to be in Russian, right?
Well, there will be a Russian version, but I sort of imagine,
Different soundtrack.
the Superman music, with something on the poster that says, "You will believe a man can lie."
Nice.
Something
I like
along
that.
those
That's
lines.
good. You worked on
Just
that. That's solid.
As a flip.
See,
Okay, that was just my take. And what do you guys think?
I do see the Batman kind of pre-planning for sales, where they put the
Right.
symbol up and then it came over time with just what looks like a pile of cotton candy in the middle of a black billboard. But they're, because it's 10 years, 15 years from now,
Right.
they can do moving billboards or whatever. And then you realize it's just lifting, and it's a comb over that's just kind of fluttering in the breeze. and then you see the TR words kind of pop up, like tragedy, troll, triggered, Trump, like that. You know what I'm saying?
I could totally see that. That's wow. Someone on the internet listening to this, because this is going to be up as a podcast.
We
Someone
know
should
people on
make
the
that
internet,
poster.
Okay.
There's nobody on the internet. There's like
Please make
9
that
of us
poster.
and a bunch of bots now. It's all programmed.
I think it should be a romantic comedy.
Oh, go
between
you again.
Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. How they first met, then they have the translators there,
And then
Dennis
they
Rodman
excuse the translators.
is trying to get into this, he's trying to do a threesome with them.
who's
And
the
then
third in that?
Kim Jong-un and Trump with their little hands, they shake hands, but they're so tiny that we'll have to get like children's hands
Right. The
to,
little plastic
to
ones.
stand in for whoever plays them.
The reality of trying to get a movie made like this, because I think most people, lefties are expecting, All the President's Men in seriousness, and then righties are going to expect a puff piece, that looks largely like a sales video trying to pitch Glenn Beck to a new cable network. You know what I mean? Like this kind of there has been no man who has stood up to so much for so few all the time. This dreamscape, because it will never meet the fantasy. So as far as a red state movie, it would have to be 100% propaganda,
Yep.
or the walking reviews would empty the theaters out by the matinee.
They don't care about the reviews.
No, I mean, but people saying,
Yeah.
the walking reviews, like people walking out going, at one point, they show him tweeting on the shitter. And I'm supposed to believe that, he got up and didn't even wash his hands. They made a point. Somebody's gonna walk out saying they made him look bad, even if he signed off on what they showed.
Exactly. Well, I think that's right. I think the red state would never trust anyone in Hollywood to make this movie. That's
Right.
why you go smaller budget, and it's like faith-friendly, faith-positive kind
yeah.
of movie. And then I'm envisioning a trailer that is kind of what you're talking about, propaganda, but in a good-hearted way. And Trump has sort of got the John Ford hero shot,
The
right?
wind
and
at
the
his
Chairman
back.
Mao-ish kind of thing, little triumph of the will kind of thing, but with that jokey demeanor of his. Yeah, I think that's more what I've been
I was thinking
envisioning.
more maybe like an action, like nature disaster sci-fi movie, right? So he's at Mar-a-Lago, just not having a drink, just eating, buffets and getting fat.
Fish delight.
And then, and then this hurricane comes and sweeps Mar-a-Lago away and up to D.C. where he's supposed to be working, and it drops him off there, and then you guys take over.
I've seen a version of this movie involving a woman who died from alcohol poisoning or something later in life. And you were there, and you were there, and Steve Bannon is the Cowardly Lion. There was a point where, Stephen Miller could literally be the Tin Man, heartless. You know, there's something to that. There's, certainly as an allegory, it works for working class. You know, the detriment of the working class. You know, the way whatever that movie was. I looked this up because I didn't remember the name, so I had to be completely honest. The director that I would choose for this, besides obviously the first choice is Mel Gibson. That's an obvious one, I think. And I'm dead serious because he's making a lot of those faith-based patriot movies, and that's kind of his deal. Panos Cosmatos.
Oh, who did Mandy?
Who just did Mandy. And that brings me to the man who could carry, who everyone in the world would watch play Donald Trump. Nicolas Cage.
Oh.
Everyone would have to go, I don't know if I'm going to like this or hate this, but I have to fucking see that. Nicolas Cage in a fat suit. He does not gain the weight. He's not going to do it because he's not that way. He won't.
Right.
But in Churchill level prosthetic, Nicolas Cage as Donald Trump, out of the park. People will see it worldwide. Worldwide, I know.
It would get a good international appeal. I think.
And with Panos Cosmatos directing him. If you haven't seen Mandy, by the way, plotline wise, Mandy is effectively makes as much sense as the current political situation we're in. It is a disjointed graphic novel visual force of nonsense and fear and heroic act outs and collapse. Like, have you seen it? I'm certain.
Yeah, it's like a heavy metal comic.
Have you seen?
No, I haven't seen Mandy.
I'm missing out.
See Mandy, folks. If I can leave you with anything today, because you can't unsee it, and it will make the rest of your life seem like it makes perfect sense. And that's kind of what's about this, because I think most people, when you hear people talking about the current political climate, they're like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Yeah. Even people who are for him are like, it's a mess. There's just nuts. It's craziness all the time. And so Panos Cosmatos captures that incredibly well, I think.
Corey, what do you think in terms of, you've been involved in many marketing campaigns for films. How do you market this? If you have any ideas for a tagline, a poster, even like what's the title? I mean, Trump the Motion Picture, I kind of feel like says it all, but if there's a better title or just better ideas, and what would you suggest?
I feel odd speaking for the red state all the time here, but just on a practical level.
Right. You're in charge of sales, so this is
right.
you're the one. We can come up with all these dumb ideas, but clearly on this panel, you're the one who would have to walk in the room and get it over the finish line.
Well, no,
so.
I want to see Hal's version. I want to see Hal's version with Nick Cage. I want to see that movie, but there's not going to be just one film made about Trump. There will be many, and it'll probably happen in 2028, 2032. After a couple more Trump administrations. You know what I'm saying? So it's whenever the madness ends, there will be movies about Trump, and there won't just be one.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on the marketing materials?
Well, kind of based on faith-friendly kind of point of view, I guess what we're talking about, and also just conversations I've had with my friends trying to understand how they end up Trump supporters, and we grew up the same way, it seems, and then here they are. They find themselves rationalizing his appeal. And there really isn't anyone else for them to vote for in their mind. So I'm thinking something that sort of acknowledges, there might be a better choice out there, but he's the one we've got. So it's sort of like I said, like the John Ford hero shot, and maybe some tagline that's like, God knows he's not perfect, or God knows I'm not perfect. And then, maybe Clint Eastwood comes in as God or something.
Oh, wow.
A little endorsement of Trump. Like, they're all rooting for him to be a better person, but meanwhile, he's better than any other choice. Well, that's true.
Well, no, I mean,
but still, my friends
that's
think
a
he's better than
fascinating
anyone else.
take plot-wise. As far as an American tragedy, if you really think of this as a feature film about the reality of it, is one of the constant things is everybody who goes, all right, he's going to be the nominee, he's going to be the president. Let's give him that. You got to give him room to actually try to succeed. That idea that president succeeds, so goes the country. So if you're rooting for the country, you have to root for the president to some degree. And a bunch of these people came out and went, he's going to get it together. Yeah. And all those people in the very beginning. And then, as we've seen over the last 2 years, watch them peel off, around that. And it becomes a Howard Hughes film.
My friends are not peeling
alone
off.
peeing in mason jars or whatever, or having someone do it for money.
I don't know.
I actually seriously believe that there could be multiple versions of the same film marketed. Stay with me on this. There's a movie called Looper, right?
Yeah.
That came out with Bruce Willis, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and there's two versions. There's the version that was made for English-speaking countries, and there was a completely different version made for Asian countries. So there's a whole subplot where Bruce Willis has a romantic relationship with a Chinese woman, and that is a.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, you're not Chinese, right? You're Korean, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but what I'm saying is they make different versions of movies for different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. My feeling is you could make one movie
with
and
a red
edit a completely different version where you've got
it's
the
version.
Clue.
It's the Clue methodology.
It's the Clue thing.
It's
like
the Clue methodology.
There'll be the
telltale thing.
I'm dead serious about this. I'm dead serious because the blue state version is going to be, we're going to see him get his. We're going to see Trump be an idiot, and we're going to see him humiliated, and because he's a moron, because I know that he is. Then there'll be the red state version that is basically going to be like, he was sent from the planet Krypton with all of his money superpowers,
right.
And he is a god. And it's a rousing patriotic story. So you could make, potentially with one film, make two versions. I mean, they used to, and even back in the 30s, when they would make those Universal horror movies, what they would do is they would make the version with the English-speaking cast, and then in the evenings, they would bring a Spanish-speaking cast, and they would use the same sets, the same costumes, and they would make a version for Mexico, right? There's like a Mexican Dracula film. So it's not unprecedented to take one film and shoot.
There'll definitely be
here's
multiple.
This version, here's a multiple version.
There'll definitely be multiple movies about this era, about this time. It kind of reminds me of that Hitman movie they did. Was it Brad Pitt who was in it or whatever? Where it happens during the 2008 election or whatever, during this short window of time, literally in the weeks before and after. And so playing in the background on the TVs is the campaign stuff. And as a backdrop of kind of saying while all this craziness is going on, real people are living and dying in relation to events that have nothing to do with that. And there is something too, kind of in a Trump movie, maybe taking that tack, the movie is about, there is a movie about the home life of somebody and how what was going on politically was going on in the backdrop of all the normal shit that was attacking and affecting them. Some that was because of it, some of it had nothing to do with it. That in and of itself will be a Trump movie in that regard.
Well, there was even the season of American Horror Story, I'm not sure if you saw that dealt with the election. I mean, it starts on election night. You kind of meet the characters, some of them regretting their decisions for who they voted for, some of them reveling and celebrating, and it sort of kicks off then, and then it just becomes a wacko horror story, which American Horror Story, I love that series. Mm-hmm. They're great at. So it was just more in the background, like you talked about.
I finally realized who's going to play Trump for real.
Who? Yeah.
Because this movie will come out in 30 years.
Yes.
So
that'll be the right time.
Baron Trump will play him. And word has it that he's actually gay, and he's going to come out of the closet and go to theater school and hate his dad, and
But I think
after Melania divorces him and he's on to his fourth wife.
Right.
I think there's a chance he could play Jared. Wouldn't that be a weird turn of events if Barron grew up and played Jared?
He could do it now. Have you seen him? Barron's very tall.
He's getting very tall. Yeah. And by the way, should we reset for some of the people that are kind of within earshot and who've come in or whatever? This is the Film Threat podcast.
We're talking about Trump the Motion Picture. There will inevitably be a movie about Donald J. Trump. And we're workshopping, if you will, exactly what the film would be.
The story, the pitch, the angle, pro or con or both. Is it a truthful tragedy about a human being? you know, with an insurmountable, you know, mountain of stuff in front of him,
Well,
or
we're only at the tip of the iceberg. Like
Right.
we're in year 2. You know, like so much more will happen
Right.
in this drama. Like who knows? The Mexicans might be pissed off that he's building a wall. They could come and kidnap Barron and hold him for ransom in a cellar in Tijuana. You know, like anything could happen in the next 2 years.
I wish I could
6
say
years.
that's not true, but you're absolutely right. At this point, anything could happen, except for the wall. That's not going to get built. But all the rest of the story, I'm 100% behind. But there will be no wall, and that's funny. You know, that brings us to how does it end in some ways.
Right. Well,
Like,
I mean, this is the thing is, because history is playing out, you know, right before our eyes, we have no idea how this movie's going to end. I mean, that's why, you know, you kind of have to give some room, although pop culture kind of eats itself and you see movies about such recent events. I feel like the Facebook movie, they may have jumped the gun on that. They might have, they should have waited a few more years. Waited a few more years to make that movie. It would have had a much more interesting ending.
It's like the Assange movie too, or whatever.
Right.
Like they made that, and the Snowden movies. They made those way early.
But yeah, but I do feel that there'll be a film made about Trump before it's over. And it's seriously.
You say it. What do you mean?
Well, but I say it's, I mean, whether he is reelected in 2020, whether he decides to step down in 2020, whether he decides that he doesn't, that the election was a fraud and he stays on in 2020. You know, whatever happens, I kind of feel like we don't know exactly what the end of this tale is.
I think there's only 2 options for the end. You get assassinated or you commit suicide.
Well,
really? Those are your 2 options?
I would not have it any other way.
We do need more women in power because they're more empathetic, and they really, it's the, you know, we need a softer approach to both foreign policy and caretaking, because it's that hard. No, the, yeah, again, you're obviously in the Inglorious Bastards angle of how this pans out. In reality, though, there is an element of, if that movie is made, like you're saying, is it one of those sitting in the Oval Office eating a giant taco bowl or something, and he takes a bite out of something?
Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, right. The Mexican delight, whatever he probably calls this out, and he goes for a second, and then it goes, "Don't stop." You know, like, and you're like, did he choke? Did it happen? Is he alive? How did it? You know what I mean? Like, have one of those like Sopranos endings where, you know, screen goes dark. You tell me. If it's before the end, that's how it's going to have to go.
I don't think any movie gets made until this Mueller investigation's over.
Well, yes, my theory on the Mueller.
So we can start shooting based on the report that'll come out after the midterms. We'll probably start lensing in January.
Right, let's start planning.
Yeah.
Look, I think that the Mueller report's going to come out. I think that there are going to be some things that seem nefarious. But I will say this, I think the answer is going to be so complex about everything, all the laws that were broken, that it will not be something that's easily explained in a tweet or even in a 4-minute news segment on MSNBC or CNN. And it's going to be such a complicated answer that none of us will understand it.
Look at the New York Times.
And that he'll be able to explain it away with tweets. And I believe that he will survive the Mueller investigation. That's my prediction.
The New York Times story about his family, you know, just dodging taxes and literally, you know, committing tax fraud came and went in many ways.
Dude, that was 2 weeks ago. Where have you been?
That's what I mean. It's like it came and went because of its complexity, essentially.
Right.
And I think you're right to some degree, although I think there's some parts of this that are pretty sexy. So I think while the whole picture may not be digestible, there are parts of it where, like, there's enough "see, I told you so's" that each camp will have something to hang a hat on.
Well, I think it does beg the question, how in a movie, Corey, this is for everyone on the panel, but Corey in particular.
I think clearly the ghost of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams.
Well, I'm glad that they're watching over the panel.
It was, you know.
How do you do, and I'm just thinking for myself in film history, the number of scenes where people urinate. Fun fact, the person who has urinated most on film is Tom Hanks.
if you
Why
look
do
at the
you know
film
that?
The Green Mile, his urination, he had a urinary tract infection, which, if you've ever had one, painful as hell, easily solved, but very painful. That was in there. In Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks sends to the president, "I gotta pee."
That's right.
Oh, wow.
There's he urinates in the
League of Their Own?
Well,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
did I
yeah,
jump
well,
the gun?
yes, but also
Castaway,
in Castaway,
he's urinate. He doesn't have a
Castaway,
bathroom.
he goes to the bathroom. Literally,
He pees like Tom
he drinks
Cruise
his
runs.
own pee.
if you want to get Tom Hanks to be in your movie, add a scene where he pees. And also, you can. Stanley Kubrick is also a fan of urinating. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, Dr. Flynn goes to the bathroom, reads a list of instructions. There's a scene in Eyes Wide Shut where Nicole Kidman pees in front of Tom Cruise. How do we do the pee tape scene in the Trump film? How are we?
It's in a
how are we
colostomy
portraying
bag.
it? Is it? You don't really see a lot of blurring on camera.
It was the storyline being that it was these two Russian prostitutes that he had been gifted for the evening.
Yes.
After Keith split.
Right.
They came back to the room and they peed on the bed where Obama and I guess had slept. I don't know if they had actually spent the night. There's a mix of stories about whether or not, but that was the suite they were in, whether they stayed the night themselves. But he was supposedly having them urinate on it as a way of some sort of obviously deep witchcraft,
Right.
because of the deep satanic ties that the Trump administration has toward which Roseanne has covered immensely with the help of QAnon. If you haven't looked that up, you should. They're all. But the idea was that he had them pee on the bed as a matter of disrespect for Obama. Not like he's ever going to sleep there again. That's the funny part, you know what I mean? But like that's how he cleanses places. But so I think it happens off screen. You just hear a bunch of sort of Russian giggling, and he's like, "Go ahead, do it. Go ahead, let it flow. I've been pouring iced tea and vodka down your throats all night, just so I can watch you hold it. You give yourself a urinary tract infection. Pee, go for it." And then as you hear the sound of it hitting the sheets, it glows gold like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction in his face, like that. And he just sits there going, and it's the only time he laughs in the entire movie.
First of all, I don't think there's any way to top that. I feel like that is the best. Corey, you could,
I
no
am
matter
a filmmaker.
what you do.
I am in the DGA after all.
I really do believe that the Trump movie is probably going to start with the Obama insult of Trump at the correspondence dinner. Like, I feel like that was like, he toyed with the idea of running for president, and I feel like that's when he made the decision. So it's probably legitimately the only thing Trump can blame Obama for
Obama narrate it.
his ire at Obama for his reason for wanting to run.
Biggest mistake in my
How
entire
about
presidency.
you just take the naked statue of Trump, poke a hole in his penis,
Oh, good
have
Lord.
it point straight up, and make it a fountain where he's always urinating in front of the
himself?
White House. It could be like, that scene from the Buckingham Fountain in Married with Children opening.
Right.
Instead, it
Chicago.
starts with a Trump statue because that's probably what he's going to build once he's done with his office.
Ed O'Neill's another option. Now you're really.
He would be great.
He'd
He would be
actually
great.
pull it off,
But
yeah.
no, so with this Trump movie comes out, I mean, the thing I do know about movie studios is they love money. They love money. So I believe
why would that be?
I believe that
So
any
they
movie,
can pay their actors and
Well,
make more
that's
movies?
true.
What kind of business model is that?
But it's going to have to appeal to as many people as possible. I think that's the challenge with making a movie about Trump is you don't want to offend people who love him, but you want to satisfy the entire audience. That's why I think it really is a quandary to really think about, like, how do you make a movie about Trump that, with the Hollywood model, you want to make it appeal to as many people as possible. So I think that's a challenge. So how does this, when this comes out, does it win awards? What are the reviews like? What is the reaction to the Trump movie? And will the reaction to the inevitable movie about Trump be just as divisive as our politics?
Yes.
Nicolas Cage's first Oscar.
Well, it would be his second, actually.
That's right. That's right.
right,
Because Leaving Las Vegas.
Right, yeah,
Basically a continuation of the same character.
Yeah, yeah.
But if he decided not to drink himself to death.
I'm just curious what the reaction is
Taco Bowl
going to
himself
be for
to
this thing, and because we all know that studios, as much as they love money, they also are willing to lose money in pursuit of awards, of Oscar gold. They want more than anything a naked gold man on their shelf.
Right.
An Oscar. I'm meaning an Oscar.
Because
That could be
the post sales of a movie go up
Right.
because you guarantee its shelf life.
Precisely.
That's what it's about. And the Trump presidency, though, has the same shelf life, I think, as a reality show. I think once he fades into history, because there haven't been any legislative achievements, the tax breaks cut is a bust. There's gonna, unless he builds the wall, there is no monument materially that won't fade with time. There is no first African-American president to him. There is no first woman president to him. There is no, there's nothing about his presidency that doesn't go, oh, he's sort of like Reagan, only not as likable, ultimately, 10, 15 years from now.
I think we're getting too serious. What would a Trump porn film look like?
They've already made it, haven't they?
I know, we just don't know the video yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hasn't there already been one? Has there already been one where Hillary and Trump are in this? There has to be.
Oh, God.
Everything is on the internet.
Unnecessary.
Everything is on the internet.
No. But ultimately, what you're talking about, though, is the red state version is effectively Trump porn. It would have to be. It would have to be, in terms of the storyline, allegorically speaking, that it would have to literally be, he's the greatest ever. That I guarantee you, there's no problem. Like he even said that in a debate. And again, I'm one of those people who doesn't believe the narcissist storyline with him. I don't think he's a narcissist. I think he's got low self-esteem, and I think
Those can be compatible.
Yeah, but
we all have that.
Yeah, speak for yourself. As a narcissist, I disagree with the depiction of him as a genuine narcissist.
As a narcissist, of course you do.
I think what should happen.
I think he hates his
He gets a
reflection.
23andMe done and finds out he's 25% Jewish, and then he freaks out. And
Why would he freak out? He married, his daughter off to a real estate magnate, and prides himself that that he's not anti-Semitic. I can't be anti-Semitic. I've got part something grandkids, right?
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
he's
It would
part.
have to be
he's
something else.
Part something. He's part Mexican.
Don't say Mexican.
I'm offended. Guatemalan.
Honduran.
How did I become Guatemalan? This is terrible. My final act as president. I will pardon anyone who will murder the people at Ancestry.com.
I think that no matter what happens with the Trump movie, Trump is going to love it no matter what. It'll be #1 at the box office no matter how much money it makes, according to Trump, right? The biggest crowds ever.
He'll take credit no matter what.
That's what's
And
gonna
it'll
be.
cost like $100 to see.
Right.
Like it won't be a
And
regular.
then there'll be a
ticket.
theater next door playing the Obama movie, and people will show pictures of the crowds. Really, we're gonna use Snapchat filters on. You can't pan to ear all of us. It doesn't have the bandwidth.
I'm working on it.
I'm not being your bunny just because you want to. But yeah, they'll put the Obama movie will be playing in a theater the same weekend. That'll be the two presidents movie instead of two Trump movies. And then the crowds for each one will be, they'll show the pictures of the crowds, and Sean Spicer will work for a PR firm that represents the movie as it's being released.
That makes total sense. I can see that.
These were the fullest, beyond capacity. They pulled the fire alarm and screwed with us. Right.
Well, I want to thank everyone here in our audience who stuck around. Thank you so much for
Thanks for coming
sticking
in
around
late,
with us
coming in
and
and leaving early, and gathering.
all those people. And I want to thank the staff here at Politicon. They've been very generous with me, so thank you, everyone at Politicon, the volunteers, Alex in the back, everybody. Where can we find you guys on social media, starting with Esther? We'll work our way down.
Clearly, Snapchat.
Yes.
I'm also on Twitter at Esther Ku, and I have a podcast called Ku and the Gang. Thanks for
Cool.
having me, Chris.
All right, thank you. Hal.
At Hal Sparks on Twitter, at Hal Sparks on Instagram, halsparks.com, halsparks.tv for the YouTube channel.
Cool.
I'm having problems with branding these days.
Okay.
You just look for my next movie. We'll
Okay.
press it when it's out.
I want to
Okay,
talk
all
to you
right.
about
Thanks,
that,
Corey.
actually.
And I'm Chris Gore. You
When
can find
we're
me
done.
at that Chris Gore on everything and anything. And Film Threat is everywhere. Instagram, the Film Threat podcast. Thank you so much, Politicon. May the force be with you.
That's right. P.S. At some point we have to do the film threat about Wonder Woman. The Wonder
Oh, we
Woman
have to do.
controversy.
Yes, well, we're going to be
And,
doing. We're
and
going
we'll
to be doing.
attach it to Mandy.
Okay.
They'll work together.
Yes.
See Mandy.
See Mandy. That's
Nicolas
the only.
Cage should just
it will
play
make it-
everything.
Yeah.
He already said goodbye. Now you're making it awkward.
We're a slow rollout. We're all parked next to each other. We're all going to say goodbye and then walk right down through the parking lot. Oh, I'm parked right next to you. Shit. Well.
Thank you, everybody.
See you later.
Thanks. Now we're going to take pictures against the wall because it looks really cool. Thank you.
That's right.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab
Senator Ted Cruz.
by the pussy.